When we got back home, we decided we would rest for a while. One result of resting for a while is we now have a baby girl. I had never had a child before in my life. I was very much against children. I thought children were a terrible waste of time, money, energy. I felt sorry for people who had children. I could never, ever waste my life by having children. I want you to know I was wrong. So I'm delighted to be here. Thank you very, very much. I will tell you it's my first time in your lovely city. I've been very impressed so far, especially by the university. So somebody is doing something right here. But first I'll start a few years ago. My then fiance, now my wife, Paige Parker, and I spent 3 years driving around the world. We threw 116 countries, 245,000 kilometers. So I want to show you a little bit about that trip for two reasons. One, a survey recently showed the number one dream that people have in the world, not everybody, but the dream which comes out on top is to get in your car and drive around the world. So I hope that all of you are going to make so much success in the new career that you too are going to get in your car or your motorcycle or something and drive around the world. This will start with us in Iceland, and we drove through Europe, Turkey, China, Korea, Japan, back across Mongolia, across Europe, Russia, Europe, 32 countries in Africa, Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, down to the bottom of South America, up through Central America to Alaska, southern part of the United States, and back to New York. That was 3 years on the road, 250,000 kilometers, and as you can see, we got into the Guinness Book of World Records because I'm the first person from Wall Street to drive around the world. So for me, it was easy to get into the Guinness Book of World Records. And it was my first time driving through Korea. And I was actually astonished at what I found in Korea. I had never driven through Korea. And there were so many historical monuments, fantastic buildings, such a long and diverse culture. So I learned a lot about Korea. And for the first time in my life, I became a big fan of Korea. And I still am a big fan of Korea. So I'm delighted, very delighted to be here now. Don't thank me, thank you. You're the ones who did it. You know, all I knew about Korea was the war in 1950 until I drove around Korea and found out, my gosh, they've been here thousands of years. They have a glorious history, great architecture, great monuments, great culture. So I learned a lot and have been a big fan of Korea ever since. You know, I even like Korean food now, some Korean food, that is. And I love fried silkworms. The fried silkworms that you can buy on the street, in Korea are fabulous. So if you've not had fried silkworms, I urge you, please go down to the street and find some. They come wrapped up in newspapers, and they are fantastic. Now, this will start with us starting in Iceland, heading off around the world, the Great Wall. We did get married on the trip, cutting our cake, going through the desert. One of many camels we saw on the road. One of many wars. We went through several wars. They were not friendly at first. One of many markets we visited. When we went around the world, you know, when we got back home, we decided we would rest for a while. One result of resting for a while is we now have a baby girl. I had never had a child before in my life. I was very much against children. I thought children were a terrible waste of time, money, energy. I felt sorry for people who had children. I could never, ever waste my life by having children. I want you to know I was wrong. We had the little girl, and I fell in love, and I realized that children can be fantastic, can be good for your life. If you haven't had children and you're old enough, I urge you to think about having children because it is really a fantastic experience. And I know that in Asia you think you should have boys. I will tell you, girls are better. Girls are much, much better than boys. So if you go home for lunch one day and have children, have girls. Girls are much, much better than boys. You can see we tried it again, so we now have 2 girls, and I'm very delighted. So you should have girls too. Now, what we need to do now is talk a little bit about markets. They asked me to tell you a little bit about money. First of all, I want to tell you that I never had much interest in Korea before, but after my visits to Korea, I realized that Korea has a great future, a huge past. It's going to have a much better future. Once the DMZ is open, this is going to be the most exciting country in the world. Once the DMZ is open, you're going to put together several million people right on the Chinese border. In South Korea, there is lots of brains, educated people, lots of capital, and ability to handle capital. In the north, there is lots of cheap labor, very disciplined cheap labor. So you put these 2 countries back together, Hanbando, once again, this is going to be the most exciting place in the world for 20, 30 years because you put these things together at the right place, at the right time, and Korea is going to be very, very, very exciting. And plus, of course, one of your ancient competitors, Japan, has serious problems now. Japan's population has been declining for 15 years now. It's going to continue to decline, and the debt in Japan skyrockets. Japan has huge, huge debt. So you have a country with huge, rapidly rising debt and a declining population. Don't worry about Japan so much. Worry about Hanbando. Worry about the future of Korea because it's a terrific place to be, and it's going to be even better in the future once you open the DMZ. Now, in 2008, we had a big problem in the world. America had its worst economic times since the 1930s. And so the American Central Bank, they don't know anything else to do, started printing money. The American Central Bank printed huge amounts of money. And as you can see, interest rates went to the lowest level in American history. Interest rates had never been this low. So the American economy revived. The American stock market revived. Here we are in 2024. And America's stock market has been the longest period in American history that the stock market and the economy have done well. I want to repeat because it's important. Never in American history have we had so long period of good times, prosperity, and no bad times. I hope it's going to continue. I basically worry that we're coming near the end, partly because it has never lasted this long. I printed a lot of money. The debt is skyrocketing, but I do not own any shares in America at the moment because I know it's coming to an end. I can see some of the signs that have always happened before when markets are coming to an end. But those of you who would like to invest in America, it's certainly a wonderful place, great future. I just don't have any shares at the moment in the United States. I have shares in a couple of countries, but not the U.S., not at the moment. U.S. dollar has been strong, partly because there was so much money printing taking place, and people put their money into U.S. dollars during this period of prosperity and good times. I own lots of U.S. dollars. It's the main currency that I own in the world now. And I own lots of U.S. dollars. And some of you will say, why? America is such a big debtor. Yes, it is a huge debtor. And I repeat, it's the biggest debtor in the history of the world. But I own a lot of U.S. dollars because when problems come again in the world, many people will seek a safe haven, and many people think the U.S. dollar is a safe haven for historic reasons. So I own a lot of U.S. dollars. I hope that when problems come, the U.S. dollar will go higher, and I hope I'm smart enough to sell my U.S. dollars. One of you will be smart enough to say, where will you put your money then? Which currency? And I will confess to you that I do not have an answer at the moment. I am looking. I look every day, I assure you. In theory, it should be the Chinese renminbi, but the Chinese renminbi is not a convertible currency. You cannot buy and sell it like you can the euro or some other currencies. So I am looking for the new competitor to the dollar. If any of you know the answer, please do not announce it here. Come up later and whisper in my ear and tell me what the new currency that's going to compete with the dollar is going to be. I look every day. Now, the U.S. stock market, as a result of all this money printing, I repeat, never in world history has been there so much money printing by a central bank. So the United States stock market has been doing extremely well. The money has to go somewhere, and so a lot of it has been going into U.S. stocks, but not just U.S. stocks. Nearly all stock markets around the world have been doing very well in the last several years, all except China. China's down, but nearly every other stock market in the world has done extremely well. So I only own shares in China and Uzbekistan, which is an old Soviet country, but they're making huge changes in Uzbekistan. So I hope that my investments in Uzbekistan will do well, because as the country changes from a disaster to a modern economy, maybe something will go right. If you look here, now you all know that your market has not been as dramatic as the US for many reasons in Korea. I don't have any investments in Korea now, mainly because I don't have investments most anywhere. I've sold out of most stock markets in the world, but I certainly have Korea on my list. I certainly see the changes that have taken place and that will take place in Korea. So Korea is high on my list. This particular city is making good changes. Electric vehicles are probably going to change the world. Everything we read about technology, electric vehicles are coming, and you are electric vehicles, you in this city. So it's probably a good place to be going forward in the next few years. And if and when Korea continues to making its changes, maybe I will come back when I'm investing in other countries again. But Korea is certainly on my list, and certainly your electric vehicles and your city and your technology that you're doing here is fantastic. And once the DMZ opens, we can get on a train here and go all the way to Paris if we want to. It's certainly going to change the world dramatically in many ways. And someday maybe I will come here, we'll all get on the train, and we'll go to Paris and have a wonderful time. In the meantime, these are some indexes. The main reason to show it is you can see the top one is agriculture has been a terrible place to be for a long time. I am now optimistic on agriculture. in Korea and much of the world, because it has been a disaster. And throughout history, there have been big, big cycles in agriculture. Maybe we're about to go to a positive cycle again. Here is just another, you see agriculture. The green line has been a terrible place to be for a long time. And in my life, I have learned if you can find something that's been terrible for a long time and there's change taking place, you might have a successful investment. This is just more of the same thing. You see agriculture at the very bottom. It's been a terrible place to be. Everybody always wants to know about gold, especially now with things doing badly in the world, some parts of the world. I own gold. I'm not buying gold at the moment, but I do own gold. In my view, everybody should have some gold as an insurance policy, if nothing else, including in Korea. But I do own gold. I prefer silver at the moment. Silver prices are down nearly 50% from their all-time high. Gold, as you can see, is making all-time highs. So I would prefer to buy silver if I were buying either at the moment. I'm not buying either at the moment, but I would buy silver if I were buying either. You can ask me questions about honeymoon spots. You can ask me questions about how to make money, how to lose money. I've certainly lost a lot of money in my day. So let me open the floor to you, and you ask me questions about anything you want. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.